Hi there, and thanks so much for joining me for another video. I'm Erin Eno, and today we're going to be painting this very loose hydrangea bouquet. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also if you want to see more beginner-friendly tutorials like this one, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's just jump in and get painting. Today I'm using my Baohong Academy cold press watercolor paper. It's 140 pound, 100% cotton. I have my Royal Talons Van Gogh paints in my palette, a jar of water and a paper towel, and I have 3 brushes today. I will be using my Curry's size 12 round in their 2500 series, and their size 6 round in the 2400 series. And I also have a Princeton Snap flat shader in a size 16. I'm going to start with my size 12 brush, and I'm going to do a pink hydrangea first. And I'm going to use rose and only rose. This is new paint I put in my palette. It's not quite dry, so I want to make sure I'm not picking up a crazy amount of it. And I'm going to start with just a light wash of this first, because our hydrangeas are going to be on the pale side and very, very loose. So I just want to start with a light wash, and I'm just going to put one right down here, and I'm just going to put some blobs of pink on my paper in a roundish shape like so. And I'm just going into my water jar and taking some of the pigment off as I get to the top end of the hydrangea. The top end I want to be lighter because I want to make them look like the light's kind of hitting from the top right corner. So this upper right edge will be lighter on each hydrangea. And don't do them in a perfect round ball. You want those petals to kind of, have some shape on that outer edge, just like so. And I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush and just pick some of this pigment up towards the top. I want them pale, just with a little bit of pink up there. And I'm going to, now that my brush isn't sopping wet, I'm going to go back into that pink, just get a little bit on the tip of my brush and start dragging through some of that stronger pigment. And this is going to be very loose, okay? So you're not trying to paint petal shapes. You're just going to let this kind of happen and do its own thing. Okay, don't try to go and paint individual petals to look like hydrangeas. We're just going to let the bleeds and the lifting kind of form the flower heads. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to lift a little bit just towards the top like so, and that's going to dry a little lighter as well. Then we'll move on and do a purple hydrangea, and again I'm going to use that rose color, and I'm going to put in, I think, just a little bit of ultramarine deep, and we'll see what kind of bluey purple we get from that. I want this to be more on the blue side than pinky purple. So I'm going to try this a little bit of cobalt blue. It might tone it down a bit, and I think that looks a little better. Could maybe even stand a little more cobalt blue. I'd rather err on the side of blue than purple. Okay, and again I'm just going to start with a light wash, so I'm going to get some of that pigment off my brush, and we're going to plunk a purple hydrangea right over here. and we're going to do the same thing. Just tap in blobs to get our hydrangea shape. Don't think about it too much, just tap away. And these hydrangeas will be kind of pale and soft. That's the plan. Okay, again, not a perfect circle shape for the flower head. And I'm just going to lift again a little bit off the top, like a haircut. And I'm going to go into that pigment while my brush is not sopping wet, and just tap in, or not tap in, kind of drag in and draw some, just some rough kind of squiggles and lines. Okay, because it will be darker towards the bottom. And then I'm just gonna kind of push and move some of that pigment towards the top. Okay, I'll let the base of it bleed out on its own, just like so. And you'll start to see, as we add paint and lift paint away, you'll start to see these petals start to kind of form and come through. So now we're going to do another pink, or another purple one over here. So again, get a wash of that purple, and we'll start plunking in some blobs for another purple hydrangea over here. Okay, so you're just loosely, that's maybe not quite enough pigment, and that's too much. So I'll just rinse some off my brush, and we're just doing the same thing. Okay, so you can kind of see how that hydrangea shape is coming through. This one, because the light's coming from the upper right, I'm going to put more pigment down at the bottom left. Okay, just so they're each getting the light source from the same direction. That's kind of important. So I'm going to go and rinse off my brush, maybe pick up a bit of pigment from up here. And then again, while my brush is fairly dry, go in and get that darker pigment and start doing some squiggles and lines at the bottom left corner. Like so. Rinse off my brush, move some of this around, pick some of it up. I'm thinking this one isn't quite as round as I would like, so I'm going to take some more of that purple and kind of bring it back over here a little bit. I hope it's not so dry that this is going to create an issue now, but it's loose, so, you know, it's not the end of the world if it looks a little odd. We can even make this guy a little bigger, just to tie it all in. Just like that. Okay, so those purple guys are sitting behind the pink one, and I think I will plunk in a couple more pink ones. Alrighty, so now I'm going to go back into this guy, which is still damp. He's not really wet, but I'm going to take my flat shader, get that a little wet, not sopping wet, and I'm going to pick up some heavy pigment, and I'm going to just start painting in just some lines. So I'm just some lines. So I'm turning my brush as I do this. Okay, so you can see I'm just getting different shapes. And while it's still wet, I'm going to go in with a damp, clean brush and just kind of move this around and spread it out. Okay, so you're getting different intensities of that pink. Okay, and just keep kind of tapping and lifting, and you'll see these kind of flower head shapes or petal shapes kind of come through. Get a little more up there. I don't want this to get too heavy, but you see where we pick up the water, this new pink won't travel so much. You can put some up there because we're going to go in with a wet brush and just kind of give this some movement and pick up. And it is loose, okay? So I can't stress this enough that we're not actually painting. Whoa, that's a lot of paint. That we're not actually painting petal shapes, okay? Okay, so now I'm just going to go in and just with the corner of my brush, kind of doing some squiggles. And again, I'm going to rinse that off. Get that big blob of water that I just splattered off of there. So with my wet brush, I'm just going in and now just softening and picking up. Okay, and you'll see kind of these little petal shapes kind of come to life a little bit. And that's about all we're going to do. Okay, we don't want to go in and work this too much. So now we're going to go and do the purple again. I've run out of purple, so I'm going to get the rose in there. And I think we added some ultramarine deep. Which is still pretty purple. I don't think I need that much, but oh well. And then some cobalt blue for a little bit of a softer blue in there. Okay, so again, same thing. I'm going to clean this brush off, and then just on the tip, I'm going to go in and start just tapping in some purple values. Okay, remember the highlights at the top right, so you don't want to add too much up there. So now I'm just softening and picking up, just mushing everything around, keeping it all loose. And then when I go in and add more, because it's wet, we're going to get these soft edges on these little blobs of color. Okay, and go back in with a wet brush and just move them around and pick them up, and we'll get some petals coming through. What your eye is going to see as petals, I guess, really is what it is in a loose painting. And I'm going into that pink hydrangea, so you can just kind of keep some petal shapes there. And I do want some light areas, like so. Now I'm going to go in and just with the corner of my brush, just get some darker values in there just to give it some depth. Okay, and the key is just to be loose with it. And just softening some of these up and picking up some values. Okay, that's it. Soften up that edge a bit. Now we'll do this to this purple guy again. And then what I want to do is just put a little bit of a light wash just towards the outer edge of that one, just so the petals aren't completely lost. Same thing here. I want it really light at the top, but I don't know if having it completely white is what I want, so I'm just going to just do something like that. Okay, and I can do the same thing for the purple. Very light wash and just kind of pull out a few petals towards that top edge. I don't want them to hold a lot of color, but maybe just have the indication of a few petals. And I'm thinking this guy has gone a little kind of lost on us. I'm going to try to re-wet some of this and see if I can pick up just a little more pigment. I don't want to work at it too much because that'll kind of chew my paper up a bit. But I just want to see if I can pick up just a little more pigment. Just tap in a little more darkness just to get some definition there. It was starting to look a little flat. Okay, so that's all there is to that. And now I am going to, and I want to be kind of reserved here, I'm going to take that pink and I'm going to mix a tiny amount of neutral tint in there just to get it like a deeper pinky color. If I just used pink and just kept adding more pink pigment, it would just continue to get brighter. It wouldn't really get darker. So the neutral tint I find is nice for deepening a color. And I just want to add just a few areas just towards the bottom where it would be a lot more in the shade. Okay, so just like that. And I'm going to clean off my brush and just kind of soften these. Not kind of soften them, I'm softening them. Okay, so it just gives us a little more depth down towards these bottom petals. But the key is to keep it wet and moving. So you have some harsh edges, but not anything too drastic. I want to keep these kind of soft. Okay, and I don't want to overdo it with this portion either. Okay, so I don't want to just put it down everywhere. I really kind of have to show some restraint here because I can have a tendency to, you know, just keep laying paint down thinking that it'll start looking like the way I want it to look rather than just let it do what it's going to do on its own. Okay, so that you can see that just pulls out a little more depth and pulls out a few more petals. So we're going to do that to this guy as well. This one's still a little wet because I went back into it, but that's okay. It should still work. And if this one is a little softer, I'm not so concerned about that because it is kind of buried behind these other hydrangeas. Sorry for the glass clinking. I'm just kind of having fun with this and getting carried away and being sloppy. And we're going to do the same with the purple. So we'll also add a little bit of neutral tint to that purple. Yeah. And remember, they're going to be at the bottom left-hand side. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to take my size 10 again, or sorry, yeah, size 12. I always call it a size 10, and it's not. I'm going to get a little bit of sap green I say a little bit, but you know, whatever. And I'm going to add olive green to that, so it's not such a bright, vivid green. The olive green was one of the latest additions to my palette, and it's one of my favorite greens. I use it all the time now. Okay, so I'm going to put a big leaf in here. So I'm just going to tap this in, and I'm just going to drag it. I don't want like a deliberate, you know, real contrived leaf. I want to keep this kind of light and loose, and maybe have a little bit of green coming out of here. I can deepen this up later if I want. Okay, so just, I won't do a leaf there, but what I will do is I will just clean off my brush and just kind of drag this down. Now be careful when you hit the pink, because green and pink make mud, and I don't want this to muddy up that hydrangea. And I think that's, I don't want to put too much green in this, but I do want green in the center here. I should switch to my smaller brush, but the tip on this is quite nice, so it's pretty decent. And I don't think, I could just do like a little hint of green just coming around this hydrangea. You can even kind of poke it in to make a petal shape. Just like that. And then I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush and just blend this out so it's nice and soft. I'm going to soften the whole edge actually. That didn't work according to plan. I'm not going to lie. It looks a little harsh. Not sure if I like it. Just going to bring it out, and I'm just going to not worry about it. So I want to add some depth to the inner portion of this greenery. So it's, you know what? I'm going to take my smaller brush just so I don't go crazy, and I'm going to take the same green and I'm just going to do a little bit of it up at this corner. So the same thing, I'm just going to take my water and just blend this out. Just so it's just got the slightest little bit of green value up there. And now the other green is looking really flat because it's not really deep in the inside areas where it should be. So I am going to add some, I think, just a little bit of mauve. I always say a little bit of sepia, and it's such a strong color that it never comes out that way. Except in this case, I could use a little bit more. And I'm just going to tap this in the middle here, just so this is a little deeper than the green on the outside edges, because it would be. And I'm going to tap some in here. I'm going to put straight sepia right in the middle, just so it's got kind of earthy tone. Okay, and then I'm going to take that green, come up to it, just kind of loosely drag it down. Okay, not fussing too much, like so. And I'm just going to go in with a damp brush and just soften this edge a bit. Okay, just so it doesn't look so harsh. Same thing up here. Just want this a little softer where it would be hitting that petal, or every petal actually. I'm going to soften every edge of it. And I think I want to make this even darker. You know what I'm going to add to it is some, no, not Prussian blue. I don't want that. I'm going to add just a little bit of ultramarine deep. Get kind of a bluey green tapped in here too. Just for something. So now I'm going to dry off my size 6 brush, and we're going to go in and just in a few areas, I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that rose with the neutral tint. A little bit more than that. Maybe not that much neutral tint. Let's try this again. There we go. And it's fairly dry. I don't have a lot of water on this small brush. And I'm just going to go in and put some dots in where I see hydrangea little flower heads. Okay, just a few. You don't need a ton, it's just enough to just imply that, yep, this is a hydrangea. Okay. Just like that. And if they look a little harsh, just go in and tap them up a bit. Just touching them lightly with my paper towel. And same thing up here. Just in a few spots just to draw out some of those flower heads. You can even do a few light ones just at the top, just like that. They would be pretty light up there. And this guy over here. I don't want to overdo it with these. I just want them to, you know, give the impression of this being a hydrangea. Do you go N hydrangea? I don't know. And then we'll do the same thing to the purple. And I think that's pretty decent looking. I just want to do a little bit more to this green in here, just to deepen it up just a little bit. So I'm going to rinse off my brush and just pull this down, just like that. Then I'm going to dry off my brush so it's just damp, and I'm just going to soften that edge just so it doesn't look like we plunked this in at the last minute, which is what we did. I'm going to make that petal a little rounder. And add a little more depth to the green in there. And I think I should stop. I'm just going to soften this a bit. I want it dark in there. I just don't want real dark, defined edges. Get some of that neutral tint, and I'm just going to put some more depth in that leaf. And then we're going to call it done, because I'm going to hit that point where I'm going to say I should have stopped then. I actually kind of like that though, what's happened to that leaf. And there's even a bloom there, but that's all good too. Let's take the tape off and see what it looks like. And there you go, there is your loose hydrangea bouquet. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it helpful. And as always, if you give this a try and you're on Instagram, don't forget to share and tag me. That's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.